I'm checking to see who's here. Frank the Tank, Maria Russell, Champ Bara, Sean Meister, and Green Jedi Monkey. All here already. Excellent. Glad to see you here. Check out my Shapes in Nature shirt. I'd rather be bug hunting shirt. Love this one. That's often a true sentiment, that I would rather be bug hunting. Although live streaming about critters works too. Laura Taylor, hello. And there's Rochelle Workman, excellent. I just saw that you left a comment on one of my videos. I think I replied to it. So nice to see you here in the stream as well. RI Naturalist is here, the Bug Hub. Did I miss anybody? Great to have you all here today. As you may have heard, this is going to be the last live stream of the year. Well, if you saw the thumbnail, you know that in the title. So, yeah, we're going to take a 2-week break from live streaming. I'll be back in January. I think it's going to be January, will it be 4th probably, when we have the next one. See, Young Lad is here as well. What I would like to start with today is the Patreon question. We had one Patreon contribution that I would like to cover. So this one is from Kelp, actually the newest patron in the Aquarimax Patreon community. And Kelp says, I just ordered some Armadillium vulgare Orange Dalmatian from you and was wondering if they're bred from the American or Japanese line of magic potions. So that's the first question. I'll go ahead and address that. So the original Orange Dalmatian were produced from the American line of magic potion, which is the true magic potion. There's nothing wrong with the Japanese line. I just take issue a little bit with the name because now that I understand how the American line of magic potion, or the true magic potion, was named magic potion because of the line breeding that was done to increase the yellow coloration in that morph. And so when you see an American line magic potion, it's typically has a lot of the yellow coloration. Kyle Candillian and Jay Fiore were the originators of that line. Jay discovered them and started working with them, passed them on to Kyle Candillian of Roach Crossing, and Kyle refined and line bred for that additional yellow color. The stock, originally when he got it, it was already a stock that was slow breeding and grew very large. So those are some characteristics of American line magic potions. And so the Japanese magic potions are really cool, but I think we should call them Japanese Pied or Japanese Dalmatian because they aren't line bred for the yellow color that is the reason for which they were called magic potions. So yes, they are isolated from the American line magic potion crossed with Orange Vigor, and that's where the Orange Dalmatian comes from. So some of the traits you'll see, I tend to see in mine at least, a higher concentration of yellow. They may not get quite as big as the American magic potions, but they're very similar in some ways. They just have the more rusty colored spots. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't stock out there that has been mixed. There may be Orange Dalmatians out there that are a mix of both lines. It's possible, partly because some people mix them, which is not great, to mix these two lines of different isopods and then release them as if they hadn't been mixed. That's the problem. That's the big problem out there. So, for example, this leads into the next question. Do people try to mix other morphs with potion or Dalmatian, like gem mix, or the different morphs of Armadillium vulgare, all from different locations, which you explain in one of your videos you really shouldn't do. So, and that's probably referring to the fact that if you mix different lines and then you sell them, we're going to have some issues in that, say you cross Japanese and American magic potions and you sell those and you just sell them as magic potions, and people get really confused about what they are, and the uniqueness of each line is compromised, right? If you mix a whole bunch of different Armadillium vulgare and you release them as gem mix, then you're fine, because that's very clear what you're doing. You're producing gem mix, which is just a catch-all category for all the different Armadillium Vulgare genes put in one spot, in one population. You've done that. That's not an issue because you're releasing them as gem mix, and people know what it is. You wouldn't want to release those as, say, Santa Lucia. Santa Lucia naturally has a lot of variation in it, but it's not the same as gem mix at all. It's a locality that has a lot of color variance, and you want to keep those pure. You wouldn't want to mix those with anything and then sell them as Santa Lucia because they wouldn't be Santa Lucia. You could mix a whole bunch of different things. You could take magic potions and orange vigors and British high yellow and orange Dalmatian and wild types, put them all together and their descend and sell those as gem mix, and that would be fine. So hopefully that makes sense. And then, yeah, hopefully that addressed your question, Kelp. I appreciate the question, and I think that's fantastic. So, looking back at the chat, I'll probably miss some of it, but I see had some more people join in. We have the Bug Hub, Theropod Hunter, Beetle Guy, Cody's Clutches. Cool. And yeah, the 12 Supreme Days of Christmas, the Supreme Gecko channel. Hopefully you're all participating in that. I believe that tonight is where my gift is being, my contribution, my donation is being won. It's being offered for winning. So, oh yeah, Rachel's talking about that, hoping to win the gift card. So it's a $50 gift card, and I will pay shipping. So you can order stuff, whatever you want, from the Aquarimax store that we have, up to $50, and then I will pay shipping as well, and it will also, you could also add to it. So if you want to do a $100 order, you could get it for $50 with free shipping. So it's a pretty good deal. And Shinyu Boy, hello, welcome all the way from Spain. That's awesome. And yeah, I'm going to end in time, hopefully, that I won't step on Wally. I'm going to try to maybe end 5 minutes early so I don't step on Wally's toes. I want to make sure everybody is able to get there. So yeah, everybody, as soon as you're done with this stream, go over to Wally's 12 Supreme Days of Christmas stream. And Frank the Tank, thank you for putting the link right in there. And if you want to do the same thing again, a little closer to the end, that would be fantastic. So, let's see. Theropod Hunter says, I'm planning on getting some Scaber moo cow when the weather gets warmer next year and probably breed them with my Scaber ghosts. That's awesome. Theropod Hunter, I don't know if people over here know what Scaber moo cow is, and from what I need to know, from what I know about it, Scaber moo cow, also called Tunisian pied, Porcellio scaber, is a morph that looks a lot like Porcellio laeva's dairy cow in its the pattern and the coverage, distribution, expression. Basically, it's the scaber version of dairy cows. And I've always thought that pattern is way cooler than a Dalmatian, because you can get a Dalmatian scaber that looks nice, but many of the Dalmatians you get are either going to be very, very low expression, or the spots are so small it just kind of looks dirty to some extent. So Dalmatians are not my favorite isopods. A Dalmatian, in terms of appearance. I mean, you know, Scaber's cool, but these Tunisian pied have a really clear-looking, sharply defined, high-expression pattern. Really cool. I would love to get some of those. They don't have them in the U.S. that I know of. I haven't found any sources for them in the U.S. I'm actually thinking of getting some imported. They are super cool. So, fantastic call, Theropod Hunter, getting that particular morph. Tom Mills, if anyone knows who has some Gonatodes dwarf geckos available, let me know. Oh, and thank you. Glad you're enjoying the channel. And, does Wally have any of those geckos? He's got an awful lot of geckos, so. And there's Luch. Good to see you here. I am having a pretty wonderful Christmas month. It's busy, but a lot of good stuff going on. And, oh, Rachel, sorry to hear about the puddings. Yeah, puddings, Armadillidium klugi puddings can be pretty sensitive to too much dampness. They really like their moisture gradient, they like good ventilation. So And that's okay if you're learning from it. That's what we all do, right? So theropod hunter, phantom bovine is a good name if the morph is successful. That's cool. So what are you attempting to get them to look like? I'm curious. When I think of Porcellio scaber ghost and Porcellio scaber moo cow and what they might look like, I'm having a hard time visualizing it. So let me know what you think. So cuddly crawlers, hello, welcome. Do you still have your night gold experiment going? I do. And these are my thoughts on it. I do have a higher incidence and higher coverage on a lot of specimens of yellow on them. I don't know if, because I do periodically go through and cull them. I think the line breeding in that particular case, I might have to be a little more rigorous with it. I don't know. It's not producing large numbers of high coverage yellow individuals like I was hoping, like the original one that I found, the founding member. There's some that are pretty nice, but I don't get very high incidence, so I don't know. And Loot, do you ever hear of sunsets, isopod? Yeah, the Armadillidium vulgare sunset, I have. I don't have that particular morph. I have orange figure, I don't have sunset, but I have heard of them. Champara got some Cubara's blue pigeons, and you got Monka in a couple of days. Awesome. Oh, and the Bug Hub is saying the sunsets are a bit more dull than the orange vigors. Is that right? Oh, Marla Blaney. Congrats on the Ember Bee Monkai. That is fantastic. Those Ember Bees are pretty beautiful. Jotaro 925, welcome. Not too late. It's not too late. We're only about 12 minutes in, so not bad. Majors Exotics, hello. Oh, I think I see what you're doing, Theropod Hunter. So you'll get the moo cow pattern, but there'll also be spots that are sort of beiged out on that. That would be interesting. Kind of like the skewbald tri, if anybody have ever seen the skewbald tri morph of Porcellio scaber, which I think is calico and piebald together, I think. Looks like that. Looks like something like that. Oh, Elaine Smith, sorry to hear about that. Recovering from that does not sound pleasant, but at least you're on this end of it. I hope the recovery goes well. And good to see you here. Okay, so the Bug Hub is saying yes on the piebald try. Good, cool. Corodullin, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but any advice for aquatic isopods? I'm thinking of trying again in a 5-gallon. All right, so what I did when and I'm assuming we're working with freshwater isopods here. I have kept both marine or oceanic aquatic isopods as well as freshwater. And they're both not too difficult to do in my experience. What I did with my freshwater ones, and admittedly this was over 30 years ago, but I had a 10-gallon tank, undergravel filter, put those in there, and they just ate fish food and stuff like that and bread, and they were fine. They were fine for quite a while until I put too many predators in, and that kind of wiped them out. But like I said, I was a kid at the time, so I didn't really know how that was going to go, but they were pretty easy. I think just providing a cycled tank, getting them in there, making sure they have access to things like decaying leaves and fish food and various other things in terms of nutrients seems to work with the species that I had, but you may well be working with a different one. Oh, 503 is here. Excellent to see you. Susan Flanagan, welcome. And Majors Exotics, glad to hear your zebras are doing well. It looks like they're breeding very well. Oh, Elaine, no, that doesn't sound comfortable at all. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Cuddly crawlers looking for spinosis. Oh, lost 7 within the first 48 hours. That would be hard to establish a colony. Not impossible if you have females that have mated or something like that, but oh yeah, that can be tough. Okay, Corodellin. So Acellus aquaticus. I'm not sure which species I worked with at the time when I did that. I have seen what I believe to be the same species here locally. I did not capture them last time I saw them. I was in an area where I was not at liberty to catch them. When I was a kid, I just found them in an irrigation canal near my house. The last time I saw them was at a shoreline preserve, so of course I was not going to collect them because I don't think that would be a particularly good idea or legal. Oh, Kevin's in the house as well. Excellent. So, Shinyu Boy, do we have a Discord community to join? I have not created a Discord community. I've talked about it. People have talked to me about it. I haven't done that partly just because I'm on so many social media channels. I have Instagram, I have Facebook Messenger, I have YouTube, and just trying to keep up with those is challenging at this point with 50,000, what is it? I'm almost at 60,000 subscribers. I think it's 58,800 and something last time I checked. And so I find it really hard. If we had a Discord that somebody else could manage and I could just pop in occasionally, maybe I could do something like that. Because I see there's interest. I see 503 mentioning some interest in that as well. So maybe that's something we could do. If someone else were interested in moderating, or some other people were interested in moderating, maybe we could do something of that sort. Okay. So Laura Taylor, needed to split my powders. I tried to do a substrate mix with the wood pellets. It doesn't seem to be working out as well as my terrarium mix. The problem is the terrarium mix has cocoa coir. Okay, well, cocoa coir is not necessarily a bad thing for isopods. It's not great in the sense that it's not particularly nutritious for them, but some people say, some people get really down on the coconut fiber or cocoa fiber or coconut coir or whatever you want to call it. And it can be really bad for some creatures. Okay, if you try to keep millipedes on it, it's not great. That can be really bad. It's not going to do them any good, and can cause problems, especially with certain millipede species. With isopods in general, most isopods, as long as you have other things like a lot of good leaf litter and so on, the coconut fiber is not going to be a big deal. They won't get much nutritive value on it, but if you're going to have a lot of leaf litter, and especially if you have some decaying wood in there and so on, I like what Oren McMonigal said about it. He said it's harmless. He's used it for years as an isopod substrate. I probably used it for my first 3 to 4 years as my main isopod substrate, and I had isopods doing really, really well with coconut fiber as the main substrate with leaves on top. That's the key. If you don't have the leaves there, there's nothing for them to eat, and so they're not getting, they're eating supplemental food you provide, but they're not getting a whole lot of other nutrition from it. But if you have a ton of leaf litter in there, coconut coir is not so bad. And hopefully this is kind of the question you're asking about, like whether or not if the coconut coir would be bad because it's in the terrarium mix. Don't feel bad about using the terrarium mix. Wood pellets in the substrate are also, I would say, harmless, but unless you are fermenting them or providing a way for them to decompose properly, they're not going to be very nutritious either. So I would say that they're not going to be great. I have some older videos that talk about putting the wood pellets in the substrate, and it doesn't hurt anything, but it doesn't really help much until they decompose. And unless the conditions are right in the bin, they're not going to decompose for a long time. So it's best if you're going to buy the wood pellets to use one of the flake soil recipes to produce flake soil out of it, in which case it will become very nutritious for the isopods. And I need to make an update on that, really, because the wood pellets are not going to hurt anything. I raised thousands of isopods on cultures with wood pellets. It's not going to hurt them, but it's not really going to do a lot of good either unless they are decomposed in the proper way. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's see, Cecil is here. Welcome. And I'm sorry, I'm just trying to catch up on the chat. And Guppy Girl is here as well. Excellent. Okay. Okay, what Kevin does is make up the substrate using a recipe with wood pellets and let it sit for a long time, and adding moisture is necessary to promote decomposition. See, that can work. It takes a long time, as Kevin said, but that can work. But I do need to do an updated video on substrate. And Marla, that's good that you bring out that almond tree wood pellets molded very quickly. I haven't used almond tree wood pellets. I've mostly used oak and alder and hickory, I think, are the ones that I've tended to use. So good to know that almond might be one to avoid. Oh, theropod hunter, a bonsai for black beauty stick insects. That sounds awesome. And 503, the flake soil didn't work for you, huh? Yeah, it can fairly easily mold. I've had some success making my own flake soil, but I feel like it takes a lot of work and you really kind of need to make a lot at a time for maximum benefit. But Kevin has had success with the method of leaving the wood pellets for 4 months. Yeah, that makes sense. Bullseye addiction. Gonna get some isopods soon. Zebras to start. Oh, absolutely. Zebras are one of the best isopods to begin with. They're an excellent entry-level isopod. They're on my list of the 6 isopods, 6 great isopods for beginners, I think it is. Is that the name of the video? Something like that. They're definitely there on that list. I would definitely go for it. Zebras are hard to beat as a beginner isopod. So I would say they're one of the coolest in terms of ease of care, interesting pattern, low cost, wide availability. You don't have to worry too much about legality because they're legal in most states in the U.S. I'm not sure you're in the U.S., but they can easily be shipped to, around the country pretty easily in almost all states. Not if you're in Hawaii or something like that, but they're pretty awesome. And 503, what you mentioned about starting with 20 or so, I think that's an excellent point. If you can start with more rather than fewer isopods, it's almost always the best idea. When I sell isopods, I usually sell them in groups of 12 plus, and I make sure to give them 13 or 14. But I would love for people to buy larger quantities, and I often suggest that. They're just they just do better in larger quantities, partly because the beginning things can be a little weird and you might lose a couple. And if you have a 6 count and you lose a couple, you're in trouble. But also because in larger numbers, they just tend to do better and tend to start breeding faster. There's something about population density. And so if you have a 6 quart and you start it with 10 or 12, they just don't encounter each other as often and are less likely to breed quickly. If you have 20 or 30 or 40 or 50, 60, in that size of container, they're just going to get a jump start. Part of it is just statistics. I mean, there are more females who are closer to giving birth at any given time, so you're going to have them breeding faster, things like that. But hopefully that makes sense. Just go with larger numbers if you can. If you're buying from someone and they're offering 10 counts, then get 2 or 3 of the 10 counts. They're inexpensive enough that you can do that. So RI Naturalist, how important is ventilation in isopod enclosure? I have a bunch of small holes, a couple millimeters in diameter at the top, but I'm not sure if it's enough. Well, this is kind of an interesting topic because you have people in the hobby who swear by crazy ventilation. You have people who swear by very low or very, very minimal ventilation. And you also have different species that benefit from different levels of ventilation. You also have different types of ventilation. So all ventilation is not created equal. Holes just on the top of the bin are not the same as cross ventilation, for example. I've varied my ventilation depending on species and so on quite a bit over time. And currently what I try to do is get a decent amount of cross ventilation and minimize the top ventilation, and it seems to work really, really well. So I think it's better for reducing things like mold and problems like that. I think it's better for reducing fungus gnat infestation, and just better in general for the isopods. So what I try to do is, if I'm doing a 6-quart tub, I will drill maybe half a dozen holes on each side right up near the top of the bin, because you want to maximize the distance between the top of the substrate and the ventilation hole, so you're not losing, baby isopods and things like that. And then on the long side of the bin, on the dry side, I will do the same thing. I'll put 6 to 12-ish holes up near the top, small holes, as high as possible on the side of the bin. And so we get cross ventilation both directions. That's generally what I do for almost all isopods. I'll reduce it a little bit for isopods that are really moisture loving, and I might increase the number of holes for isopods that like a lot of ventilation. That's basically what I do. I don't put ventilation on the top anymore, really. I have some bins that are still ventilated on top, and I have breathable medical tape on top. But that's basically what I do for almost all of my isopods in 6-quart bins, and they seem to work really well. Hopefully that helps. And Chempbara saw one of my Ukraine pied C. convexus I got from you has a marsupium. It would be the first to produce for me. Excellent. So when did you get the Ukraine pied from me? Because I just barely sent some out. But I know that the names on YouTube are often different from real names. So did I just send those out to you yesterday? Or is this something a little longer ago? Either way, congratulations. That's awesome. And Marla, starting off with the Panda Kings, 3 small groups from 3 different sellers, and they flourished. The genetic diversity may have helped. It's true. So Shinyu Boy started with 10 of 4 kinds. Laevis, cow, gestroy, albino, T-negative, and pandas. Well, that's cool. 10 is not bad. You can do it with 10. I've started mini colonies with 10 or fewer, sometimes even only 6 or whatever. You can do it. It's just, it's easier to do it with larger numbers. And good points, Frank to tank. Temperature and humidity in your house different depending where you live. And good point, 503 Menagerie. Bug Hub makes very nice vents, and I use Bug Hub vents so on some of my enclosures, and I think they're great. I love that they're so customizable. I love that they're such a great fit. So they can be excellent too. Jackson Phelps, welcome. Yeah, you can definitely start with a small number and have good results. It's just it's going to be faster results if you start out with more. And let's see. And Jackson just started keeping isopods. That's awesome. If you have any questions about keeping isopods, happy to help you out. So Cuddly Crawlers, have you found the isopods useful for collecting for shipping? I think I will. I will find them useful for that, because I've found them to be very effective at getting the isopods to go inside the isopads. And Cuddly Crawlers sent me a couple months ago, was it? The isopads, which are the 3D printed kind of shelters that also function as a feeder and also function as a collecting, almost like a collecting trap, so to speak. It doesn't hurt them, but there's a center point which you can use to dig out a piece of zucchini or sweet potato or something like that, and then put it into the top, and then there's holes through the sides, and the isopods come in and you can collect them. You can also add other foods in the bottom and so on. So it's a nice little gadget. There's various models that I'm trying out. And I think that the short answer is I haven't tried specifically using them for shipping. I've sort of just done a test of, okay, I'm putting zucchini in the middle, scooping out the zucchini with the little zucchini plug area that you put in there. It's not just for zucchini, but you know what I mean. The food plug area, and putting them in and seeing how well it collects isopods, and it does. I need to organize myself a little bit better, so I need to think, okay, tomorrow I'm shipping, so today I'm going to put all the, I'm going to fill all the isopads and see what I can do in terms of shipping. So I want to do that. I want to try it out. I just haven't tried it specifically for shipping yet. Okay, so Jackson, I don't know what type the isopods are, but they're small and black. Did you collect them locally? Oh, there's Josh Lorino. Welcome. Small peanut jar that's about 10 inches tall. Okay. As long as it's ventilated okay, you could use a jar. I would recommend a container with more floor space or bigger footprint. That can be a good thing. And 503 has a great suggestion. If you post the isopods in a group online with some good photos, you can get some IDs. I would be happy to take a look at them if you send me a message on Instagram. You can go to bugguide.net. You can use inaturalist.org. Just make sure you get a nice clear photo, and then that can help you identify your isopods. And frequency fire starters, hello. Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to see who wins the 12 Supreme Days of Christmas donation. So every time that I've checked the cuddly crawlers, every time I've checked the isopods, when I put food in it, they seem to work. I mean, the isopods go in, they eat the food, and it's working. I just need to, like I said, get a little bit more consistent about, or I need to do a little bit more organized preparation. Like I'm shipping tomorrow, so now I need to fill the traps, fill the isopods. I just shouldn't really call them traps because they're not just that. But they are good for collecting, it looks like, because I see the isopods going in. All right, still trying to catch up here. S. Lehman, hello, welcome back. And glad that helped, the 2 colonies thing. Yeah, it is so, it's a really good thing to have 2 colonies because once in a while something will crash and surprise you, and I'm glad that helped out. I'm sorry you lost some dairy cows, but I'm glad you have a backup. And Aqua Garden Zen, hello. So bullseye addiction, we're looking at Ventmaster 2-inch vent simply because they have the tabs on to hold them in. Would one of these on each end be sufficient for a 12 to 14 enclosure? Probably for most applications, yes. Ventmaster, I don't know if I'm familiar with those, but a vent in a 12 to 15 quart enclosure that's 2 inches on, you've got some cross ventilation, that should be pretty cool. So Shinyu Boy, post pictures, a couple of ideas. If you post it on social media and then send a link to me or tag me or something like on Instagram, you could do that. You could also just go to the aquarimax.com website, go to the contact form, message me there, and then I can reply to you, and then you can reply with images. The first message you send won't work that way, but subsequently it will. So frequency fire starters, what's the ventilation requirement on most cubaras? I think you'll find a wide variety of opinions on that. Generally, I think there are a lot of people that say they don't need a lot of ventilation, and a lot of people who say actually they need a lot of ventilation, they just need moist substrate. And you will find out that the more, I mean, you'll find and probably already know, the more ventilation you have, the quicker they tend to dry out. So I would say it's hard to say really, because you're going to find so many people with so many different opinions. I tend to err on the side of giving good ventilation, at least moderate ventilation with cubaras, including cross ventilation, and then making sure their substrate doesn't dry out. Like my rubber duckies are in a tarantula cribs enclosure, and well, not all of my rubber duckies, but my main culture, I guess you could call it, are in tarantula cribs enclosure, which have a decent amount of top ventilation and cross ventilation, and I just have to make sure they don't dry out, and they do really, really well in there. Waffles, the elf is evil, Frank? Okay, it sounds like RI Naturalist helps out Jackson and probably Porcelius caver. Thank you. Steve Pond Productions, how many jumping spiders do you have? Let me think for a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe. I have some I have some Phidippus, Audax, and I have a Phoedippus ardens, and I have Platycryptis undatus. I think those are the ones that I have right now. Okay, Chris Carlucci, I got 40 count plus Armadillidium clugai Montenegro from you. They're thriving and striving, and my broomtails are booming since doing what you told me to. Excellent, that's what I love to hear. Glad they're doing so well. So Cecil, is your name Russ, the guy on the live camera? Yes, that's me, Russ of Aquarimax Pets. So Theropod Hunter, I wonder if there's an isopod species not in the hobby that you'd like to see in the hobby. Well, I think it would be cool to get some Hemilepistes reameri, a desert species that has really advanced parental care and burrowing. They burrow in the desert to create a microclimate that is healthy for their young, and they'll go out and forage. One will take care of the babies while the other goes out and forages and brings food back for the babies and stuff like that. I think that would be pretty cool, having a setup. So beetle guy, how are the blue death feigning beetles doing? Doing well. I haven't been focusing on breeding them for quite a while now, but I have a lot of them, and I am thinking that for this coming spring, I want to put some deeper substrate in there and hopefully get the incubator set up and start breeding them again. So 503 Menagerie, unrelated to isopods, what pointers do you have for cherry shrimp? I just got some and I'm paranoid I'm going to kill them. Well, they are fun. I've bred them for a long time. I started keeping them in 2004 and have kept them most of the time since then. I would say a couple of things. One is hopefully they're in a really established tank with plants and lots of opportunities for some detritus to build up, some dead leaves from the plants. There are even a lot of shrimp keepers who buy and sell various types of leaf litter specifically for the shrimp to eat. So getting some of that in there can be a good thing, because they really need to be able to eat a lot of biofilm and so on to thrive. And so making sure that you're putting them in a tank that is established enough and has some of that going on, it goes a long way toward making sure they succeed. What else can I say about them? Lots of cover, not just for when they molt, but for the babies. Make sure there are lots of places for the babies to hide and for molting adults to hide. And if you have a lot of heavily planted areas, that's going to help a lot. As far as filtration goes, filters are good, but you need to make sure you're protecting them from being sucked up in the filter. So a sponge filter can be a good way to go. You can also put a sponge on the intake of a hang-on back filter, something like that, to keep them from being sucked up and killed. So hopefully those some things help. Those might be just too easy. Too many water changes can be bad. You do want to, do water changes, but not too many. You want to keep they like stability. They like it moderately warm. If you're in the mid 70s Fahrenheit, that's pretty good. Mid to even high 70s Fahrenheit, you want to get too warm or too cool. They can do okay at those temperatures above and below. They're not necessarily going to be at the sweet spot for breeding. So hopefully that helps. So Eclectic Tony, how easy to keep are the Florida Fast? Pretty easy. They're fairly decent breeders. They are, of course, fast movers. Keep them moist. Most of their enclosures should be on the moist side, and they'll do pretty well. And let's see. Sorry, I know I'm missing some of the chat. I'm trying to keep up. S. Lehman, what would you suggest for 2 bins that everything seems equal, but one is having a die-off, 2 Hoff bins, one is thriving, making babies everywhere, one is having issues, everything seems equal? Isn't that infuriating? That does happen sometimes, and it's hard to figure out what's going on. Sometimes it can be as simple a thing as One is closer to an exterior wall, and because it is, it's getting, one side of the bin is getting more condensation on the side than the other one is, and that can be really frustrating. Ooh, do you have them in the same place? Like that, or is there one up against a wall or whatever? I'm getting a super chat. Mr. and Mrs. Morelia. Wow, that's a nice big super chat. Thank you. Says, been busy and distracted lately, holidays and all, totally understandable. Just wanted to say thanks for donating to Spring Gecko's 12 Supreme Days of Christmas. Hope you and your awesome community have a wonderful holiday season and a healthy and happy new year. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate that, Mr. and Mrs. Morelia. You've always been a great supporter of the channel. And I want to thank you and hope that you have an excellent holiday season and that your new year is amazing as well. So cool. Very much appreciated. So S. Lehman, tell me a little bit about your situation that way, if there's anything that could contribute to gradients that would cause condensation on one end or something like that. So, okay, 503, good to know. Sponge on the hang on back, that should help protect the babies. Jackson, can worms be paired with isopods? They can. I think part of the problem is that worms and isopods are basically eating the same things, but worms are going to do it faster, they're going to process it faster, so it's not necessarily a good thing for the isopods to have the worms in there. I know some people have done it successfully in bioactive and so on, but it does mean you're going to have to replace the substrate a lot faster. And once you have worms in there, it's kind of hard to get rid of them. So Josh Larino, do you have any advice for field collecting and how to do so in the fall and winter months? Well, if it's getting really cold, there are isopods that can be active below freezing in some cases, or when the temperature outside is about a little bit, it's at freezing or slightly below, sometimes certain ones can be active. I don't get a lot of that in my area. Right now, snow's pretty deep around here, and there's no way I'm going to be collecting any isopods. I've never seen any of the species that tend to be winter active here, but I would say it does depend on where you live. There's going to be different types of isopods, and there's also going to be different temperature, minimal temperatures and so on in your area, so quite possibly. You know what I want to try? I want to try the isopods to collect isopods outdoors, the isopods that I have made mention of in this stream. But field collecting, basically you just need flat or flattish things like rocks or boards or logs, anything that a little bit of water is going to, it's going to retain a little bit of moisture under there. And check it out. You can use some of the trapping methods like we talked about. You can cut a hole in a potato and put it out there, and you might find some in there, and put that under or near some of these logs or pieces of wood. And Frank the Tank, that's a good point. With the Hoffman's egg eye, since it is that species and they do tend to exhibit some territoriality, you might try breaking them up. I know that some keepers will just kind of keep Hoffman's egg eye in lower densities. You get a male and a couple of females and put them in a bin and keep it like that, and then the offspring, you'll let those raise up and then start splitting them instead of trying to keep a huge colony of them, because they can get aggressive sometimes. And Beetle Guy, this is a Shapes in Nature shirt, one of 3 in this house. I love Shapes in Nature stuff. Jesse makes amazing things. So this is my Shapes in Nature I'd Rather Be Bug Hunting shirt. And Cecil, how long were you on the channel? How long was I on this channel? How long have I had this channel? I seriously began to work on this channel in 2016. I had the channel for much longer. I think I started the channel in 2011, I want to say, but didn't do much with it for years, except for just, occasionally made a video randomly. But in 2016 is when I seriously started doing things with the channel, made sure I released at least one video every week from that point. So Bullseye Addiction, what temperature ranges can you ship isopods? It gets really cold here in South Dakota. Well, there are some things to think about. One is postal delays. Like right now, I'm not shipping it all next week or the week after because of holiday delays that can happen with shipping, so I'm just not doing it at all. And that has a little less to do with temperature and more to do with those delays. I will comfortably ship in winter temperatures if it doesn't get too cold with a heat pack and with the insulation. I have the polystyrene insulation in the box, and then I have heat packs which help, you know, with that as well. And then I recommend, highly recommend, in winter shipping when it's cold, using express shipping of some kind rather than just priority USPS or something like that. So that can help a lot. So I will ship when it's you know, above about 25 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty cold. I will ship, but it can get a lot colder than that, and if it does, I would hesitate to ship in weather that cold. So 503, do you ever see the snow fleas where you are? Well, I have seen springtails that are active on ice or on water that is right next to ice. Like last year in January, I saw some springtails. They were green springtails on a frozen, it's kind of a body of water that was somewhere between a river and a pond, where there was some flow in it, but it was pretty lazy and it was kind of meandering, so it was sort of like a pond, sort of like a river. Anyway, there was a lot of ice. Most of it, or much of it, was covered in ice, but there were some melted parts. And on those melted parts, I was seeing springtails jump. So that was kind of fun. Okay. So Jackson Phelps, what you could do for protein for isopods like portocellular scabber. You can use fish flakes or fish food pellets. You can use things, isopod food like Supreme Isopod Chow. I like to use that one, and there's a protein formula that has extra protein in it. You can use dried mealworms that you can get for animals to eat. Chicken food, you can get dried mealworms that are sold for chicken food that are pretty cheap. You can use pieces of dog food, just dried dog kibble. I can go to the grocery store and get dried dog kibble in bulk, and so you can get as little or as much as you want. And if you don't have very many isopods right now, you could go get a small bag of that in bulk from the grocery store for just a few cents, and then just use it over the next month or so. You know, just get a couple of tablespoons. They will really eat dog food. You don't want to give too much at a time, because that's a good way to attract mites. But if you can give a quantity that the isopods will finish in a few hours, that's a good way to do it. So S. Lehman, yeah, I'm thinking it might be best to pursue the idea that there could be some territoriality issues with your isopods, because it sounds like the environmental conditions are so similar. And 503, yeah, talking about the fish flakes, the dried minnows are a good one. Pinky mice, yeah, I use my excess pinky mice if I have some that nobody wants or nobody's ready to eat, that I will give those to my isopods too. Mountain Greenery, welcome, and Aftech as well, welcome. So the egg crate's stacked, you have everything. It looks like you're doing all the right things, S. Lehman. This is a perplexing one. Theropod Hunter, Orange Werner, I go crazy over cucumber. You know, I hardly ever use cucumber, but I should try it with my isopods, but I should try it and see how the Werner I go. I'm really liking the Orange Werner. I have it on my micro-zoo shelf. You know, when I sometimes put new cultures of things and smaller cultures of things there, and I'm giving them a lot of Supreme Isopod Chow, and they're really going nuts. They like bee pollen too, but I need to try cucumber. So, S. Lehman, are they using the cork flats a lot as hides? And are they concave or are they more flat flats? All right. Thank you, Frank the Tank, for joining in. Good luck with everything at Wally's stream. I hope it all goes well. I'm going to cut out in about 5 minutes to make it easier for people to get over there. And Shinyu Boy, yeah, you can share the tweet. Just if you can share it. I don't really use Twitter much. Just trying to think if there's a way. If you shared the link on my contact page. We could do that. Oh, what's that drop? This behind me? Yeah, this is just a, I can't remember what they call it. I bought this online. I bought one on Amazon. I have an identical one that I bought on another website. Can't remember, but you can get these on Amazon. And I just use it as a background for many of my videos because it kind of reminds me of where we might go to collect creatures or observe creatures, and it's kind of fun. People sometimes think I'm green screening it, but you can see I'm not green screening it. Okay. And Cuddly Crawlers, thank you for joining in, and happy holidays to you. And to Chris Carlucci as well. Okay, great, and Merry Christmas to you as well. All right, same to Laura Taylor. Happy holidays, and to everyone. We've got about 4 minutes. Oh, Green Jedi Monkey thought this was the wall. That would be cool. If I had a wall painted like this, I would use it. That would be fantastic. But it's, but it is a green screen. You're right. It's not a green screen, but it's a green screen, 503. I have to admit, you got me there. Question for everybody. How's the audio today? I'm not using anything. This is just my onboard mic from the iPad. That's all I've got. So we're wondering how it's going. I meant to put the microphone on at the beginning and I never did it. So I hadn't heard anybody complain, so I just figured I'd go until somebody did. And then I would plug in the microphone if I needed to. But if it's a little low, then that's good to know. So Steve Pun Productions getting a green lynx and spitting spider and southern house spider. Awesome. I have a southern house spider. I want a green lynx spider. And probably a spitting spider too. They're very cool. Swift's inverts, awesome. And Theropod Hunter, yeah. I really get a kick out of moss. I grow a lot of aquatic moss. I have a huge chunk in my Endler tank. I used to grow lots of different kinds of moss and even liverworts, and I don't do as much of that anymore, but I love it and want to do more of that. Okay. Okay, S. Lehman, yeah, let me know how that goes. I'm hoping that it will work out for you. Okay, so a lot of people are saying that the audio is good, but some of you are saying it's a little quiet, but not bad. Okay. Maybe I should just test out the other audio and see how it's going to go, huh? So I've got my microphone on, I just didn't turn it on. So I'm going to play with that just for a second. Let you all know, or you can all tell me what you think. How's this? Sounding okay? Let's see. Did the microphone actually turn on? I can't tell if I turned it on. Oh, I did turn it on. So if it's louder now, then that's good to know. Good to know that this microphone is actually helping. So I'm glad I spent money on it. Okay. All right. Okay, 2 adult males, juvenile male, and 6 or 7 females. That doesn't sound like too bad of a ratio, S. Lehman. So maybe we're okay. But it's worth experimenting with a little bit. 503, sorry to hear about your velvet spider sling, that it passed away, but I'm really glad you found your ball python that had been gone for so long. My velvet spider adult, my adult male, my mature male, recently passed away. Oh, that looks funky like that, doesn't it? Here, mine recently passed away, which is very sad. Of course, it wasn't unexpected because once they become an adult, the males don't last a long time. So it lasted a number of months, and that's not bad, but it's kind of sad because now I don't have it. So we can commiserate 503 in the loss of our velvet spiders. Oh, Jotaro, I hope you do find your lizard. Okay, so the general consensus is the audio is doing better. Okay, so I'll remember that for next time. It looks like we've got about 1 minute before I go, so that I can let those of you who are participating in Wally's 12 Supreme Days of Christmas, do that. So I want to thank everyone for joining in, and I want to wish you all happy holidays. Those of you who are celebrating holidays, I will be doing so and doing some traveling and so on in the next little while. So we're not going to be having a live stream for a couple of weeks, but I will be releasing videos on Fridays as normal. And I will be back to live streaming in the new year. So the first Wednesday in the new year, I'll be back to it. So I hope you all have an excellent evening, excellent next couple of weeks, and we'll see you back in January here on the live streams. And keep an eye out for Friday. Got some fun videos coming out these next couple of Fridays. So appreciate you all joining in and all of your help. Thanks again, Mr. and Mrs. Morelli, for the super chat, and catch you later.